Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Why did you schedule Dave to fly out of Memphis at 6 in the morning?
That wasn't me.
That was him?
Yeah, it's because they have limited number of flights going into Charleston.
We had to leave at 2 in the morning.
There's nothing wrong with that. Well, what time was his flight? 6 a.m.?
Yeah, it was a long day on the road yesterday, but was able to get back.
Did you sleep then?
I got some sleep in, yeah. I was asleep by 8 and I fell asleep.
All right, man. A ton of stuff to talk about. We've got a really good show today. We're going to have the current AOY leader.
How about that?
Bradley Roy.
How about that?
And I actually said his name correctly because for the last 8 years,
I
always
enjoyed calling him Bradley Waugh.
In reference to
Patrick Waugh.
Patrick Waugh.
Or a number of Waughs that have been in the NHL.
Goalie for the Canadiens and the Avalanche for a number of years.
Now he's coach of Colorado, isn't he?
Think so.
Or was?
Yeah.
Is?
Something like that.
You know what he's become famous for? The trend over the last several years since Patrick Waugh started coaching, pulling the goalie with lots of time left.
Really?
Like he's pulled the goalie with 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left to give him when his team's down.
Yeah.
He'll pull his goalie with 3 minutes left if he's down by 1.
Huh.
He's kind of started a trend in the NHL is pulling your goalie not in the last minute, but with a lot of time left on the clock.
Yeah, that probably never happened to him. He probably never got pulled with 3 minutes to go.
Well, that's why he got traded out of Montreal.
Why is that?
He gave up 8 goals in a game and didn't get pulled. And he got so pissed that the coach didn't pull him that after the game he said, "That's the last time you'll ever see me in a Canadiens uniform." And sure enough, it was. And then he went to the Avs.
Very interesting.
Anyway,
All right.
back to the fishing.
Cool show today. As I mentioned, we're going to have Bradley on. And when I was looking at some stuff about him, Matthew, he started in 2010. The years have flown by. He's 26 years old, 28 years old, something like that now. And it's flying by.
I remember,
he's not a little kid anymore.
Covering him in his very first Elite Series tournament, I believe, on Clear Lake. Remember, he had a top 12 finish. We were out there with Harold Allen. If I remember right, we got a photo of him around some pilings catching a nice fish, and I think he was throwing a jerkbait on a spinning rod back then. Now, I hadn't thought of that. Now, that was 2010, but I remember that, and he was 18, 19 back then. So.
Yeah, he is not a kid anymore. It was pretty interesting because you rarely see these guys, kind of like me, you rarely see me without a hat. And when we were setting up the Skype feed, he was not wearing a hat.
I don't think I've ever seen him without a hat.
I know. I was like, wow, I hope I got the right dude there. But it was him, and really looking forward to talking to him about his season so far. Interesting enough, he has a 25th, a 4th, and a 22nd, and in really, really good position. Here's the other thing. A number of things to talk about. We're going to have him on here in about 15, 20 minutes. I do want to mention, though, we are doing a Friday show because initially we were going to try and get Mark Menendez on, who obviously is a Kentucky Lake czar. Had a good week this week.
Some interesting things to stay on stage.
And we're really going to try and get his take. And really, it's more of an information type of show to really give people a true insight on what's going down with this Asian carp thing on Friday. He couldn't do it today. So he said, hey, man, I really want to do this. And I guess he said some interesting things at the weigh-in. Also, along with a number of, I know Boyd.
A call for action, basically talking about, because he's a hometown guy there. Kentucky Lake's his hometown, kind of a call to action as to who to contact about the issue.
Yeah. And I went back and I found some videos, Matthew, that were like 4 years old, even some that were 5 years old on YouTube, about how this issue, this situation has been around for a while now. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And there was actually a news report that, according to this news report that was from a Paducah news station, that this whole problem originated in Arkansas. And these fish were put in to get rid of the grass.
I thought they were brought over to eat.
No, according to this new, and I'll see if I can find this, and maybe we can run it on Friday. But according to this news report, these fish were placed into the South, and it started in Arkansas to get rid of the grass. and then it just went Katie by the door. And then
I don't know how
they actually had some footage
accurate that is,
where they had I called them harvesting of Asian carp.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like 900,000 pounds of carp.
Yeah, they can't get rid of it.
Can't get rid of them.
It's the whole thing. They got to come up with a different name for it. No one wants to eat dolphin. Everyone wants to eat mahi-mahi.
Oh, they had a dude on there talking about how
that's what
good
I'm saying. And that's what it is. That's what I said. It's a different. No one wants to eat dolphin. Everyone wants to eat mahi-mahi. No one wants to eat carp.
Maybe we could have you try it. Maybe we could get some. Would you try it?
Everybody will call them.
Have you tried
silver slabs? There's got to be a
Have you tried it?
No, but I would definitely try it. But I also am glad that I do not live in proximity where I can just go catch an Asian carp and try it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a. Now I was talking. Now, is there a way potentially? So they obviously travel with river systems. I'm thinking, well, thank God we don't have that issue here in Oklahoma, and we never will. But couldn't it go Arkansas, or couldn't it go Mississippi River, Red River, Arkansas River, Eufaula, Grand? Or Grand, couldn't it, isn't there all that connected between the Arkansas and the Red and the Mississippi?
Yeah, and this news station had this map that kind of showed the migration of where this thing is, and it was very, very interesting. But it was old, though.
And if you've been living under a rock and didn't follow the Elite Series this past week, a ton of guys posted during practice of Asian carp, invasive species, jumping behind the boat. Jason Christie's went absolutely viral. A number of guys did. The Duck It on Tour we have coming out with Dean Rojas, a portion of his interview has chaos going on in the background as the Asian carp are jumping. So that's what we're talking about there.
Yeah.
But still, it took 20 pounds a day to get it done, but when was the last time in early May you heard a tournament on Kentucky Lake where the guy who finished second had a limit 1 day?
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, the numbers are definitely being affected. And a number of players in this game, folks, have said on the record, this is the worst potential disaster in this game.
Especially to the TVA system.
Yes, that we've experienced. Because it goes so much further than just catching fish. I mean, if people go out and their days, their recreational time fishing is being spent by dealing with this species, people aren't going to buy tackle. They're not going to buy rods. They're going to get frustrated. They're not going to buy boats. They're not going to spend money. Communities are going to suffer. It is a very, very important. And Mark, when I spoke with him about this subject, very, very passionate, very knowledgeable, and hence the reason to get him on the show Friday, to where he can really kind of give us some education on what's taking place, what has taken place, what needs to be done. But I know that there are some top names in this game, Matthew, that want to get involved. Duckett was very vocal after having been told, the Elite Series guys, by management, hey, don't talk about the Asian carp. He was very, very vocal on stage the final day about, hey, look, we want to get involved. We need to really attack this situation, whatever we can do to try and help get rid of this really tremendous issue for fishing, not just bass fishing, but for fishing. We got to get involved.
And Gene Gilliland was on Bass Live and talked about it, and I did some research on the actual Asian carp and how it works and all that just stuff that I read online. And it's visible short term, but it's a long term problem.
Yeah.
As far as the health of the fishery and the nutrients and their filter feeders, what they eat is what the little things eat, that the bigger things eat, and then the little things turn into bigger things. So it's interesting because I think it's such a hot button, because you can look, there could be a lot of other things wrong with fisheries that you would never know. And it's just like, something's wrong. But I think this one is a lot easier to fire off, because you can idle and go, look, there's the problem. There it is,
all over the place.
6 feet in the air. There's the problem, and it jumped in the bottom of my boat. So.
Yeah, I'm really curious on whether or not, and Mark may know this, whether or not there are corporations out there, food processing, fish processing.
There's one on Kentucky Lake, like I said, and they're trying to
get more,
but there has to be a demand for this in
there
America
is in China.
First. Right.
There is in China.
Right.
And what they're trying to determine right now is what is the most economical
to get it from here to there.
Exactly. Profitable way, because there is a massive amount of money to be made if somebody can figure out that process. All right, a ton of other things to talk about. Dude, look at this. Look at this.
Yeah, your shoulder's moving. I'm starting to think you maybe milked it in your original photo where you had the sad face and the not good.
Well, they did a nerve block.
You had 9 million.
Do you know what a nerve block is?
Yeah, you can't feel anything.
Zero. I mean, my whole entire arm
was numb.
Could not move it.
For 36
It was like it wasn't
hours.
even there. Okay, so I'm going to cue this up, man. It's not that long. It's only like 30 seconds. Check this out. Here it is right here. Look at that.
Oh, for the iTunes viewers,
there is my torn labrum right there.
Actual look from the camera. Boy, that could be interpreted as a lot of things.
I know.
Mark. But you weren't lying. You weren't milking it. It does look torn.
And this is the procedure where they actually go in and remove the scar tissue.
So that's all scar tissue.
Yeah.
So there's none of that white kind of cotton candy looking stuff should be there?
No. It was a mess.
What is that, a little drill or a little...
some kind of...
sucks it up?
Yeah. So they have 3 holes in your shoulder. The surgical instrument right there, the camera, and then one other deal. But the good news...
Would you have to pay extra for that? Is that kind of like the roller coaster at the... when you get off the roller coaster, you see the photo of you on it, and then you're like, for $7 you could...
But see, here's the other thing, and I didn't play it because... I didn't want him to be embarrassed. My doctor, a real good friend of mine, I've coached his kids forever. He was actually doing play-by-play during the surgery. So I actually got a chuckle out of it because he was describing...
That looked really clean, though.
It was.
I mean, it looked very... once all that's gone, you'll be able to have full range, and then...
Yeah, like my movement right now. Like I started therapy on Monday. I mean, I had surgery on Thursday, therapy on Monday. My range of motion has already increased 38%.
From what it was before?
Yeah.
Oh.
Prior to surgery.
And you still no prescription pain meds?
0. I did not take any prescription pain meds whatsoever.
It doesn't hurt right now?
It's sore. I mean, therapy is demanding. And that's the only way. It's funny. He was saying during the video, during surgery, he goes, you got to move it. You got to move it. You got to move it. The entire freaking video, he's telling me, hey, you got to move it. If part of the issue with rehab and everything that you go through post-surgery is they go in and they fixed it. They repaired my labrum, cleaned out all the scar tissue, grinded down a bunch of bone spurs. If you don't do anything with that afterwards,
it freezes.
It's just going to go back to the way that it was.
Yeah. That's why I mean, we've seen guys with shoulder and elbow issues during the season.
Yeah.
That have really affected them, if they don't get it fixed.
So I thought you'd get a kick out. I had no idea that I was even getting that video.
Cool.
All right. The other thing I do want to mention, there were some situations that took place last week at Kentucky Lake. And in the grand scheme of things, dude, I started thinking about some of the other things that are taking place in the bass fishing world and also in stuff that's going on right now that affects everybody, that is totally unfishing related. And for the first time in a long time, Matthew, I really I tried to narrow it down and keep it about as small as that broken coal ring right there.
Well, it's not broken. This was my artifact from this week. I got the KVD crankbait.
Yeah.
I got the water from that. This is a conservation cull ring from the final day that Wesley Strader used to make his biggest cull.
Yeah.
So I'll add it to it.
There are some things in this game, dude, I don't think I will ever understand. I don't understand why people do certain things. I don't understand why actions take place during specific times and people do things, especially in this day and age of social media. But there are other things that I think we are constantly trying to find the answer to that we're never going to get. And there were things that took place, and there were events and situations that took place these last 2 weeks on the Bassmaster Elite Series that in the grand scheme of things, they're a speck. They're a speck. And I know I'm being very broad at everything, but I got a very interesting email from a fan, and I'm gonna try and get this person on. And whether this person comes on, you're
trying to get the fan on?
No. Will remain to be seen. I actually received 2 emails on this subject, and somebody, Austin, I don't know where Austin is from, on the instant feedback, actually posted a comment about this. And when you look at the Angler of the Year standings right now, there's one name that is at the bottom who has not had a finish greater than 100th place.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal, Mark.
And with all due respect to the greatest of all time, Mr. Rick Clunn, there are fans, there are people, there are media people, there are a number of just people that have idolized you that really, really want to know what the hell is going on. Because even though he's accomplished so much in this game and so well respected, people, and me, I'm a fan. What the heck is going on?
The interesting thing, and we're talking about Rick Clunn, who's currently in 109th on the...
And I'm hearing stuff that he's throwing fish back.
Well, those are the rumors. He
confirmed.
has been on Bass Track with fish in 2 events on the second day after bad first days, and not been to the weigh-in 2 out of the 3 tournaments on day 2.
So I don't know. I just, as a fan, as somebody that has admired this man for so many years, what the heck is going on? Mm-hmm. And this brings up the discussion, not the argument, but the discussion of when is the right time to just step back and go, you know what? It's time for me to do something else.
Well, dude, the guy won a year and a half ago.
I understand that. All right.
Blew it away.
How cool would it have been, all right, after that season, after getting that blue trophy, to just say, you know what? I'm going to let the young guys have it. Not that he can't compete. All right, that's not what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I think he wants to make more classics. He still feels he competes. He talk about how he can't, he doesn't believe in retirement.
If that is true, that he actually has fish and is throwing fish back
instead of weighing them in.
Come on.
Yeah, I don't. I know he's done that in the Open, but a lot of the Elite Series guys do that in the Opens because they're not fishing for the points. They're just trying. That was back when they're winning their in.
But he is the man. Mm-hmm. And people want to see that. And I know there has to be frustration.
What's weird is doing it this early in the year. Because, you look at the standings. If you had 6-7 points, you get 3 or 4 more points. And then that means you have a belief in yourself that you can rattle off a couple top 12s and maybe those points that you salvaged at the bottom come back. So it's interesting.
I just wonder if he would be willing to talk about it. Now
hey,
don't get me
him
wrong.
on the. You can.
I know. I'm
got open lines because you guys
reach out to
got the poker connection.
I'm going to reach out to him because it's not vintage Clunn. It's not the Rick Clunn that we know. It's not the Rick Clunn that we've seen for the past 30-something years, 40 years in this game. So maybe there's something he doesn't want to talk about. Who knows? All I know is that when you have 3 Elite Series events and Rick Clunn's best finish is what? 104th? What is it, Matthew?
Not good.
It's not. Something's not right. And maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But as an icon and a true icon of this game, something's going on.
Yep. I got transition here. Speaking of not showing up to the weigh-in, I guess Jordan Lee didn't weigh in on day 3. He made the cut still. Nothing's wrong with him. But I on day 3, I said, well, I'm going to bring him the shadow box with the live well water that we talked about that has been kind of a month in the making. So if you're watching it on the video, that is what the shadow box turned out there. You can see the water in there moving around, so it's pretty cool. Already have, and we'll get him on the show to talk about it, so I won't say names here. Already have an opening bid on this. It'll go to the charity of Jordan Lee's choice.
Yeah.
At $250.
Very cool.
So, vial right there of the actual live well water from day 3 of the Classic. But I thought that turned out really good. Jordan Lee was super excited about it.
Did a great job with that.
Not a great third day for him at Kentucky Lake, so he hit the road.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't catch any keepers, or I don't know what went down there. So this will get to him. This is one to hit. You've got 4 of them total.
Right.
One for the studio.
And we're going to take pictures. We'll take pictures of
auction,
and we'll get them on an auction
but
site.
That's cool. So now I can take that down.
All right. Hey, I want to backtrack just 1 minute real quick. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I have the utmost respect for Rick Clunn. I do not want people to think that I'm calling for him to retire, anything like that. What I'm saying is a member of the media, is a fan.
It doesn't seem Clunn-like for him to throw fish back and not come across the weigh-in stage in the second and third tournaments of the Elite Series season.
Yeah.
That's all we're saying. And we would do the same thing if let's say it was Joe Smith had done the same thing, and there's like, hey, there's rumors that Angler X is chucking fish back and not weighing them in.
Yeah.
So
it's like you want to reach out to the guy and go, dude, what do you need? What can we do to... not that we could do anything, but it's just that he's too much of an iconic person in this game to see what is taking place.
And
the
then
first 3 events.
you take a look at how Kevin Van Dam won on Grand Lake.
Yeah.
And then you take a look at how Skeet finished second on Kentucky Lake. There's been a square bill in the hands of a lot of the top finishers.
You think that's weighing on him?
I don't know. Square bill and spinnerbait. Even at Lake Martin.
I don't know if he'd come on the show, but I'd really, really like to get him on and just talk about it. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it.
I'll let you handle that one. That one's above my pay grade.
Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it at
all.
all.
That one's above my pay grade.
Some other things that have happened in the industry while we've been gone. Obviously, very sad news coming in with the passing of Ed Chambers. I don't know if you ever got the opportunity to
I never
meet him.
met him, but I did do a lot of reading about him after I'd heard that.
Pretty amazing individual. Very, very amazing.
Did you ever get to meet him?
Yeah, met him a couple times. Very, very unique individual, and truly, in fact, I'll say this. I've mentioned that I was on the voting committee for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, and he was actually on the ballot, and I did vote for him. And this was prior to his passing.
Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, I don't care. So what? I'll tell you everybody I voted for if somebody asks.
Who'd you vote for? I just asked.
Let's see here.
Ed Chambers.
Ed Chambers.
How many do you get
Don
to vote?
Ivino.
How many do you get to vote for?
There's 3 pros and 3 media / industry.
Okay, so Don Ivino.
Don Ivino.
Is that for the pro or the industry?
Industry. And Bobby Garland was the 3rd industry guy.
For the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame or just freshwater fishing?
No, Bass Fishing Hall of Fame.
Okay.
All right. The whole subject matter as far as what he is.
Yeah. Okay. So who'd you vote for?
And then pros, Kevin Van Dam.
Give them no brainer.
Mark Davis.
No brainer.
And who was the 3rd guy?
Ike?
No, he wasn't on the ballot. You have to be 50.
Oh. You have to be 50 years old?
Yeah.
Oh. But three anglers.
I cannot remember.
Really took that one into...
Third guy.
Really put some thought into that
Kevin
one.
and Mark Davis, and then the 3rd guy I cannot remember. I'll have to look that one
Ike
up.
will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, won't he?
When he turns 50?
Even with all the crap?
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
Because okay.
That really bugs me. I don't know who my 3rd guy was.
How many options did you have? Or could
I think
you
there
just
were
pick any?
No, I think there were like 8 guys on there.
Okay, cool.
So, but...
Kevin's 50.
Yeah.
They'll have a whole, with his Bass Pro connection, they'll have a whole wing for his
Probably
Hall
so.
of Fame.
Probably so. All right.
Are you going to get invited to the induction ceremony since you're a voting member?
There were 30 of us. I think the number was 30.
Are you sure you didn't just break some non-disclosure agreement?
Whatever. I mean, what does it matter?
All right. What are we doing now?
A couple other things to mention. Hang on. Where's my list at?
Oh, it's a short list if that's your list. Yeah, you were talking about Ed Chambers.
Oh, the pure fishing situation.
They're up for sale again?
Yeah, Newell has decided that they are going to liquidate the brands. And what's really going to be interesting to see what takes place from a business perspective on that is 2 things, Matthew. One, are the pegs going to get more involved in the tackle business? You know what I'm talking about? The private equity groups. Because, there's the vast majority of these larger companies are owned by PEGs now, private equity groups. Or are these brands going to be gobbled up by current brands? In other words, you're going to have Pradco buying
a soft bait company that's currently owned by them.
And some of the other things, but receiving a lot of pressure, the board at Newell receiving a lot of pressure for their share performance because it has not been doing well. It's very up and down. Mm-hmm. I've been watching it a little bit. So from an industry standpoint, it's going to be really interesting. ICAST just right around the corner.
And what's super awesome, what's crazy is they got some super good stuff and some super cool stuff coming out at ICAST that you guys are going to see. I mean, they've really been working on new bait and product development with their Elite Series and FLW Tour pros. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. A lot of new stuff. Like, cool stuff.
I know. So, if you want to check out more on that story, there's plenty out on the Newswire. I think Bass Fan actually had a story on that. Mm-hmm. And then I was actually reading on Business Weekly. They had some stuff that was related to the Newell situation. So NASCAR for sale too. I know that's unrelated. Multiple reports that Mr. France is done. He's going to take his billions and
is that where
cruise on down the
Duckett
road.
Slides in?
I don't think he's going to have an interest in NASCAR. Don't think so. Hell, you never know though. No telling on that. So, all right, man. We'll take a break here in just a couple of minutes, but before we go to break, I want your take on this. 3 events into the season. What is your biggest surprise so far, Matthew?
West Coast guys are dominating this thing. I mean, absolutely dominating it. And you're talking about lakes where you wouldn't. I mean, Lake Martin, you can understand, but the Grand and Kentucky Lake thing. But if you look at the Angler of the Year standings, you have Brett Hite, Josh Bertrand, Dean Rojas, Aaron Martins. That's crazy.
Wow.
And then Skeet's up there in the top 50. Chris Zaldane's in 30th.
That's a great point.
The Golden Ram is in 50th. So every single person from the West Coast, Mark Daniels Jr. is up there.
Yeah.
But absolutely dominating, and we still haven't gotten to the places where they're supposed to be good.
Yeah.
They're going to catch them in Texas at this lake. Then we go up north. They're going to catch them up north for the smallmouth. They're going to catch them in South Dakota. They're going to catch them in New York. I mean, you could see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 place finish by the end of this thing from all guys who are Arizona, Nevada, West.
Yeah. No doubt. All right, we're going to take a break. I want to remind everybody I'm going to throw up a promo. Our next one-on-one live, May 30th, 10 a.m. Central Time between Mr. Mike McClellan and Jeff Crete. Crete's kind of a head-scratcher. In fact, they both kind of are after 3 events.
Now they're going to be angry at those fish. I had one more other thing I wanted to notice.
What's
the
that?
First 2 winners, and this is the last time I don't think we've ever had this.
Yeah.
If you look at Takahiro Mori and Kevin Van Dam from the first 2, they're both in 37th and 38th place in the Angler of the Year.
Yeah.
So they're right now barely in the Classic, and they've won a tournament already.
Hey, by the way, during the Kentucky Lake pregame show, who did I pick to win?
You mentioned Wesley Strader.
I did.
But you picked Kevin in your official.
Yeah, I know.
And I picked Jacob Wheeler in my official.
Do you still have that?
Yeah,
somewhere?
actually.
All right, Friday we'll go over it. We'll go over that on Friday.
It's not pretty.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Bradley Roy.
Way faster than Mike. It takes Mike 3 days to figure them out.
I do get an hour and a half to practice, so at least I've got a chance to get out there, try to put something together. But I mean, the home field advantage is going to reign huge for Creek.
Kind of need the advantage right now.
I just really think I got just absolutely stabbed in the back.
So am I going to beat Mike McClellan this deal? Guaranteed.
the most versatile fishing machine on Earth. Unparalleled resolution and clarity, with more agility, lightning speed, and brute strength. HDS Carbon takes rapid response performance and screen technology to an all-new level. Maximized power, maximized visibility. See Structure Scan 3D, new dual chirp sonar, new live network sonar, and more mapping options, all at the same time and faster than ever before.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm not Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
My rods look different because they are different. Every rod is built by the pros and for the pros. When you pick up a white Duckett fishing rod, you're getting a cutting-edge rod, one that's truly pro-driven, with the actions you need for every bait category you fish. I put my name on it. It's my promise to build you a great rod you can count on.
Duckett Fishing, Micro Magic, Macro Magic, or White Ice.
Try them. They work.
When you are on the water, you need performance you can count on. Lowrance has been proving it for more than 60 years. Just ask our pros. HDS Carbon is the choice of champions. The clearest, most visible screens and killer new features like fish reveal and dynamic high visibility contrast ensure you catch more. Now is the ultimate time to get the best deal. Save up to $500 when you buy a qualifying HDS Carbon in the Ultimate Upgrade Sales event before May 31st.
Hey guys, Russ Lane, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro. Man, I am so excited to be joining the AFCO Pro staff. They got some really cool, innovative products to help you have a more enjoyable, comfortable day while you're out there on the water. Really stylish, great functional clothing. You're gonna love it. The thing I'm most excited about though is AFCO has pledged to donate 10% of their total profits back to supporting the conservation of our fisheries, and I am all about supporting a company that's about supporting conservation so that we can enjoy our bass fishing for a long time. Check us out, AFCO.
Jacob Wheeler and Tommy Biffle have a lot in common.
Flat bill.
The perfect shape.
You gotta love some light tackle.
I know I have a spinning rod.
I love my hammer crawl.
Biffle bug.
Rigged
on a hardhead.
Well, they could be twins. Bifflebug, hammer crawl, hardhead, from Gene LaRue.
Let me help you, man.
Let me help that hat.
Whoa.
There you go. I already looked better.
When I talk about Sunline, I think of one word: confidence. Sunline FX2 is what I use for all of my frogging and flipping.
SX1 braid, which braid plays a big part in fishing line.
Shooter, I'm going to use in those close quarter deals like flipping and pitching.
One of my favorite techniques in fishing the tournament trail is to fish offshore ledges.
We have taken the questions out of the equation.
Take my word for it. It works. It works, dude.
All right, we are back in studio. Mark and Matt, back from a 2-week jaunt here in Oklahoma and Kentucky Lake.
It's kind of weird because it was kind of seemed like it was broken up because Grand Lake was so close to the home.
Yeah.
I got so much grief. So I did that Bass Live deal with Mercer on Saturday on Grand.
Yeah, did a good job.
Yeah, and he introduces me as a local and Grand Lake expert.
Well, you always say you're in the top 10%.
No, I've never said that.
We've had that argument
but
multiple times.
I'm clearly not a Grand Lake expert. I live 3 hours from the lake, so we spent most of the segment.
Yeah, but your performance has been so well on that body of water, Matthew.
It was just funny. I got a lot of group texts that were like, "Whoa, look out! We got an expert here." From the guys around.
Well, you are. You've had a lot of success on that lake. All right, it is time to welcome our guest here. Real quick, when I went back and I started crunching the stats, he's 6 for his last 6 and getting checks. Obviously, 2 of those was guaranteed money with the AOY.
That means you're doing right if you're getting guaranteed money when you show up to fish. That means you're fishing something good.
Exactly. But he's 8 out of his last 12 and getting checks. Been doing this game now for 8 seasons. This year so far, a 25th, a 4th at Grand, and a 22nd at Kentucky Lake. There's a reason that he is leading the Angler of the Year race after 3 events, obviously. But a lot of up and down, and he has maintained that top 25 consistency.
If you look at Bradley's kind of career path coming in at such a young age, it's consistently going up. Just as far as the percentages wise, and then you can look at that graph is just climbing.
Yeah. All right, let's bring him in. Bradley, you there, man?
I'm here.
All right. I think this is the first time that we've had you on the show, so welcome, man.
Well, it's good to be here.
I was talking to Matt, and I can't help it. I still remember that first Elite Series event in 2010 at Clear Lake. Matt and I were talking about it, and you were just a kid then, man. And look at you now. You're all grown up. You're leading in the Angler of the Year race. It's just time is flying by. But from a maturity standpoint, from an angling standpoint, this has got to be the best year of your career. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. I mean, to get a good start, you mentioned coming from like Clear Lake, 2010 when I started, being 19, just really young when I started. Now I'm 27, so I'm getting a little age. I mean, I can grow a beard now,
I still can't.
I couldn't even grow a beard when I started. So, but no, it's been a great year, and hopefully we can keep it rolling. But I'm enjoying it right now for sure.
How much of this year do you think, and Jeffrey's mentioned, was it like 10 of the last 12, goes back to Lake Conroe and that classic? It was your first classic. You were in a position to win. You had the camera, the media attention on it, and it seems like ever since then you just haven't lost the momentum from that classic experience.
Well, fishing's all mental. We talk about that all the time, and I feel like I've always known I was a good fisherman, and but just to get that validation over and over again a few times in a row that hey, I was there to win, and I felt like I should have won that tournament. I've never really talked about it a lot, but I feel like in my mind I lost that tournament over just a few little small decisions that I made. But that doesn't matter, but because Jordan won the classic. But to me, that let me know that I was capable of winning an event like that, and it just helps your confidence. And when you're fishing confident, it gets dangerous.
I want to know specifically about Grand Lake. I want to talk about the Grand Lake stop real quick. How did you get so dialed in, and what was your practice like? Because we heard a lot of moaning and groaning because of the phase that everything was in, but how did you get so dialed in at Grand Lake?
Man, Grand actually, and my practice wasn't that great. I started out the first few days cranking gravel out on the main deal, and it was some pre-spawners that were moving up, but I felt like that deal was going away. I mean, we were the end of April, the water temperature was warming up, and those fish had been wanting to spawn for a long time. But Grand Lake sets up like a couple lakes around in Kentucky that I fish. So I felt really comfortable. I felt like I knew where those fish would want to be at the end of the deal. So the last day of practice, I went where I thought they would be spawning, and I got a lot of bites. I didn't get a bite over 2 pounds, I don't think, but I got a lot of bites, and I thought those females are coming. And I just went with my gut instinct, and I went right back to where those were, and I stayed in those areas and fished, extremely slow, which is not like me. And I just kept every day developing. Every day of the tournament, I would start out at a new area. And I would go into that area, and my marshal would be like, "Did you fish here yesterday?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. This is exactly what I need to be fishing." I was so dialed into that pattern. Those fish were spawning on the last deep water in the pockets and the last little deep water and maybe a little creek arm or something. I know they were spawning elsewhere, but they were really spawning hard on those little, almost like a false bluff wall or something. There would be a shelf down there in 2 to 4 foot of water, and man, they were just on it. And I figured that out early.
Matthew, you don't know this, and Bradley doesn't know this either, but I think it was day 3. Pat and I actually watched him from the bank. And watch Bradley on one of the cuts that you were fishing around Airport Cove. Not in Airport Cove, but one of the cuts around Wickershams, and it's impressive. It's impressive to see him and what he was doing on the water, trying to target on those fish on what he just exactly described. So we watched you for about 30 minutes, Bradley, on day 3.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate that.
Jeffries was house shopping.
I was just looking, and I was like, oh, there's Bradley.
You broke into a gated community, and we're driving around house shopping.
No, he just happened to be in there. Anyway, all right, let's move on to Kentucky Lake. Expectations going into Kentucky Lake after a really, really good performance at Grand Lake. How was practice, and once again, how did you make any adjustments, or how did you attack once the tournament started at Kentucky Lake?
Well, Kentucky Lake's a monster. Even though I'm from Kentucky, I live 3.5, 4 hours away from it, so it's not really my home lake. But I know enough about it to know kind of what's going on that time of year, and that can be a really weird time. Usually the first part of May, if it's a normal year, we've got fish getting out on the ledges, but where we're behind, the whole country was behind. I just committed to that shallow water game, and it ended up paying off really well. Obviously, that's how Wesley won and had the majority of the field caught them. I just committed to that shallow water game, and I committed down south, and I tried to narrow down to a small area so I don't run around. We know that lake's huge. But practice was great the first day, and the water was about 2 feet high over Summer Pool, and they just dropped the bottom out of it. And it kind of got weird for me, and I knew there would be guys that would catch them in the bushes, but I just didn't feel like you could win that way. And I know maybe it got won that way, but I just wasn't real comfortable with it. So I went to a few areas that I knew fish could still spawn with some deeper banks. They could continue to stay there as the water dropped out. And I basically stayed in those areas and just worked. And it just, when things are going your way, like the first day I caught a 5 1/4 on a spinning rod on a wacky rig, and the second day I caught a 5 1/2 on a spinning rod on a wacky rig in those same areas. So when things are going your way, you land 5 1/2 pounders on a spinning rod. That can take you late.
It's crazy just the trends that we see. I mean, last year it seemed like it was the year of the jerkbait, and everybody was catching about a jerkbait. This year, that Neko rig, which is Neko because Sego, the photographer, said it is not Nico.
Right.
He goes, that's how Americans say it, is Neko.
Right.
and the wacky rig, and you look across it, and it's like you can't fish a tournament without that now this year. Is that something that you have done a lot of, or is this just the way the year is set up because it is behind? We've had 3 or 4 tournaments where that just happens to be the bait that is highlighted, or is it because of Jordan Lee and what was done at the Classic that now everybody is aware of it, and you were like, maybe that'll work here?
No, actually, the believe it or not, wacky rigs bailed me out many times, especially on the Tennessee River. Guys don't think it can catch big fish. They always associate it with a finesse technique. And, man, like at Guntersville, when we were last at Guntersville, a few years ago, I had a good finish. I had a good finish there. I had like 20 pounds the first day, 18 pounds the second day, and all those fish were on a wacky rig. And so, it's not only a small fish, a finesse technique. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're on a big fish body of water, you can get those big females sometimes to bite that. And you got to think, we had there was a 200 boat tournament going out of the dam, a 200, like I think 100 or 200 boat high school tournament going out of Barkley, and a big tournament going out of New Johnsonville. So those fish were pressured, and then the water was falling out. It wasn't like it was easy. So I thought they would maybe bite that a little easier than they would, the flipping thing. So it worked out.
Let me ask you this real quick. One more question about that wacky rig. Is there any way, you see baits come in, crankbaits, Alabama rig, fish seem to get conditioned to that. You hear guys like you talk about fish getting, is there any way that bass can get conditioned to a wacky rig? Or is that a bait that will always work?
I think it's going to always work. Number one, it's a small window whenever they're spawning that you can throw it to them. I guess with the Neko rig, whatever you want to call it, I guess that could maybe get it down there deeper where those fish maybe could get conditioned to it year round. But people just don't throw it. That's people just they want to be throwing what they think is going to catch a big fish, and they just don't throw it all the time. So I don't think it's going to get overused at all.
Bradley, what's been the biggest improvement in your game over the last 8 seasons? What has really improved to where, from a confidence standpoint and a technique standpoint, you really feel like that you're going to hit it lights out every time you're on the water?
It's really just a confidence, and it's a more mental thing. I know I said that earlier, but for me, I knew how to cast when I started the Elite Series. I knew how to pitch. I knew how to do all that stuff. Of course, I maybe have gotten better, and there's techniques that I picked up that I'm getting, better at as I go along. But to me, it's fishing my game. And we go to places, and you go to certain lakes, and you know how you should catch them or how they say you should catch them. But I don't overlook the obvious anymore. Me and Matt talked about this after Kentucky Lake the other day. I don't overlook the obvious anymore. Bass are bass no matter where they are. You look, I think I watched some of Bass Live stuff. Skeet caught a lot of his fish right there near Paris. Some of those were probably released fish. And a lot of locals would have went out and overlooked those fish. But yet Skeet's catching 20 pounds a day on fish that most guys overlook. So what I'm saying is, a lot of these big tournaments, we think it takes something special to win them, and it doesn't. So over the years, I've just learned to fish my style, don't overlook the obvious, and be confident in what I've found. And it's worked out, and I'm going to continue to do it. I just don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing. I don't really listen to anybody else. I room with Mark Menendez and Greg Benson, and we'll kind of talk a little bit. But outside those guys, I don't really listen at all to what's going on the lake at all, because it just gets in your head and messes with you.
What's the history as far as practice? Are you a daylight to dark kind of guy, or are you pretty much structured where, hey, I'm going to go out for 6 or 7 hours and that's it?
No, I'm a daylight to dark guy. I have to work at it, and there's always something I want to look at. At Kentucky Lake, I was putting in at the south end and fishing for a while, and then I'd run up and check something on the north end, so I would take out, drive up there, put in. I'm definitely a daylight to dark guy because I want to check my bases, and I don't always have everything figured out. And Grand was a good example of that. I don't have exactly everywhere where I'm going to figure out, like where I'm going to catch them exactly. Like I'm going to catch them here, here, and here. I have a general idea of what the pattern is, and then I'll look at my, Navionics card, whatever, my Lowrance, and figure out more areas that look that way. That way I continue to have fresh water to fish. And that's another thing that's helped me, is I've learned in these multi-day tournaments, you cannot go back and just keep catching the same fish over and over, hoping to have a good bag every day, unless you found something magical. Most of the time you've got to find fresh water, or you're not going to keep up that 17 to 20 pound bag every day.
That's one of the things that I've noticed and I've kind of become aware of over the past couple years is, as a media guy, you want to go, hey, are you catching them? That's a horrible question to ask the top guys in the world, because and I've had a conversation with several of these guys. I want you to back me up and see if this is right or not, but you guys could give a crap whether you're catching them or not in practice. It's whether you understand what you think is happening or is about to happen. You would probably much rather go into a tournament, haven't fished in practice but only caught 1 or 2, but in your head say, okay, I kind of know what's going on here, then absolutely slay them in practice and have a spot or 2 where you think you can go back and catch them. So we should not be asking, are you on them? We should be asking, do you have a general understanding of what is happening on the fishery? Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly right. Like if you rode with me during practice and you saw the bites I got and the bites I shook off, or any of the pros, you'd probably be like, holy crap, this guy's about to have a terrible tournament. But it's not about what you catch. And I try to preach that to, I do a lot of, I meet with a lot of high school teams and stuff in the state of Kentucky, and I try to tell them that, look, you can't win practice. There's no awards for winning practice. Stop catching fish in practice. Stop hooking these fish. And I want to cover as much water and try to learn as much as I can during that practice day to see where those fish are going. And you're exactly right. It's not about it. It's honestly miserable sometimes how many bites I actually get in practice. It's not. It's very little, and it's hard to overcome that. And you want to, you don't want to lose sleep over it. But I've learned to not worry about it. And it's just you need to know where those fish are going or where they're going to be once the tournament time starts. And if you know that, you're going to have a good event.
You think that's the hardest part for like a rookie coming in, and now you're a seasoned veteran, are the guys who man, I've got $5,500 in this. I came in pre-practice and I didn't get bid in practice, and I'm about to go get my butt kicked and be embarrassed. Do you think that's a big struggle and a learning curve that you kind of have to go through that phase before you get to the go with the flow, it's all part of the process phase that you seem to be in now?
Absolutely. And I mean, hardly ever do I find anything on the first day of practice, like Monday, if I find myself starting on that the first day of the tournament, something I found Monday, I usually find myself in trouble come tournament time. So I try to just, the first day of practice, I'm not worried about getting bites. I'm just trying to figure out water temperature, water clarity, what kind of phase the lake is in. If I can conquer that the first day of practice, then I'm going to try to find the fish on day 2 and day 3 of practice and zone in on them. And it works for me. I mean, everybody's a little different, but that works for me.
Bradley, are you a student of the game from a perspective of going back and watching archive stuff that's on the Bassmaster website?
Sometimes. Depends on what kind of body of water it is. I mean, I want to know, like if we go to somewhere like the Sabine or Winyah Bay or something, there's obviously areas of those bodies of water that just don't hold bass. So, yeah, I'm going to go in there and look and try to learn where bass live on those bodies of water. But if you're talking about a Guntersville, it's hard for just to go back and repeat magical success like where Randy Howell won the Classic or something like that. So I don't get caught up in just watching exactly where they made the cast at. I just want to know kind of where bass live, or maybe how that guy won it as far as, bait colors and if there was any little tricks he did. But I'm not looking to go back and just throw right at the same riprap stump or what, something that he threw at. So yes and no. I do a lot of that, but not necessarily just the Bassmaster archives.
All right. On the instant feedback, David in Wisconsin wants to know, does Bradley fish much in between tournaments? And if he does, what does he do to relax and sharpen his skills?
I fish as much as I can. And honestly, I enjoyed our break. When we had the Sabine rescheduled and we had that big break, I got to fish, at home, Lake Cumberland and Harrington Lake and stuff in April, which I never get to do, hardly ever. And I really enjoyed that. I mean, I'll fish little 4-hour tournaments around the house. I love doing those little shotgun tournaments because I think those sharpen your skills as good as anything. When you've got 4 hours to go out and try to catch them against some of the best little local fishermen on the lake, I enjoy that as much as anything. So I fish every chance I get. I try not to get burnt out on it. I know that sounds crazy. Everybody's like, oh, you fish for a living, you can't get burnt out. Yes, absolutely you can. But I definitely will go fishing with my friends. And sometimes I'll let them run the trolling motor. I'll stand in the back of the boat and fish and just relax and have a good time. But every time you're on the water, you learn something. So I try to go as often as I can.
You ever fish team tournaments when you're home?
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't do it as much as I used to. Obligations are more now, but I used to fish 3-4 nights a week and just have a blast doing it, and would do it now if I had the time.
All right, I'm curious, prior to the season, how much pre-fishing did you do? And now, being in the position that you're in, obviously with the off-limits in place for certain bodies of water, are you planning on making trips to lakes that may not be off-limits yet?
I did quite a bit. I practiced the Classic, and I went down to Lake Martin. I'd never been to Lake Martin, and I knew I could go. Lake Martin was a wintertime tournament, so I knew I could go during the winter before the cutoff, and those fish would still be somewhat similar to where I would find them then. So I went there. Grand Lake, I went out there. I didn't have a lot of time. I made like a day and a half trip out of it, and I basically just never shut the mercury off and just rode the whole time and looked. I didn't really want to find places that I was going to fish. Things were going to change. I just wanted to see how the lake laid out, what it offered. Same thing with Kentucky Lake. Obviously I knew that place, but that was one I wanted to do well on. So it was close, so I spent a lot of time there just fun fishing and trying to get familiar with it again. Obviously things have changed there with carp and different things like that too. But then that's about the extent of my pre-fish so far. Some of them, the schedules overlapped. I wasn't able to go to. If I get a chance to go to them, I'm going to go. If I don't, I've done well. I've top 12 on events that I didn't practice, and I've top 12 on events that I've practiced a lot. So for me, it's just all about situational. And if I get the chance, I go. If I don't, then I make it up as I go along and go fish off my instincts, which I think I have to do regardless. So,
all right, interesting question on the instant feedback. They want to know your thoughts about the advancement of electronics in tournament fishing. He says, you see guys with 360 and everything else. 10 years from now, are you guys just going to have to stand out there and just throw it out there and fish are going to bite? What are your thoughts about the advancement of electronics?
Obviously, I mean, the majority of them, it's awesome. I don't know where it's going to go. I foresee eventually we're going to have to draw a line somewhere because this technology is not going to slow down. It's just like computers or anything. We're going to keep pushing the line. Eventually, probably, Bass makes a rule. They do a good job of making rules. We ruled out the Alabama rig. We didn't think that was a good thing or whatever it is. And eventually, I think there's going to be some things that come up that we're going to decide as anglers to keep it a pure sport. We're going to have to say that's not going to be legal on our boats. So I think we're going to get to that point. We're not there yet. It's still not as easy as that right now. I mean, we've got your 360 stuff and you got your side scan and got all that stuff, but they're still bass. I will say this, like the Kentucky Lake tournament where it ended up being a bush deal and shallow water, I really enjoyed that because the last 150 times we've been to Kentucky Lake, it's been an offshore deal. I enjoyed the heck out of going there and it being a traditional bank fishing deal, having to get up on the trolling motor and find them. You couldn't just find them with your Lowrance. So I love that.
All right, real quick, kind of a different kind of question. Throughout your young career, in the early stages of your career, when did you kind of just sit back and go, I've made it. I'm here. Who was it that came up to you and said, hey, Bradley, man, nice job. And then you kind of stood back and went, wow, so-and-so just told me nice job. I've made it. I'm here. Did that ever happen?
Man, it's happened. I can't remember like specific times. I've obviously had several of those moments over my career that just those wow moments. When I first started, and a lot of, I think rookies get caught up in this, you're fishing, you pull into a pocket and you start fishing and you look over and there's Greg Hackney or Van Dam or somebody and you get a little spun out by that because you grew up watching those guys and you loved watching them. They were heroes to you. But I've got over that. Obviously now I'm just trying to beat them, But I've had, like the other day, Hackney idled up to me, and he, obviously I just took the lead over in Angler of the Year, and he was like, man, just keep hammering them. He's like, good job so far. Stuff like that. I don't remember specific times as it's happened, but over the years, little things like that have happened. I've had conversations with Van Dam, and just knowing that they notice what you're doing, and to me, that kind of validates you and gives you more confidence and saying, look, don't worry about the fact that if you can catch them anymore. Now it's time to go out there and do your job, and I've kind of put all that behind me, and it's really about me and the fish. And I know that sounds cliche, but they're out there trying to do the best job they can to beat the fish. If I beat the fish better than them, I'm going to have a good event. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
All right.
I'll go with my off-the-wall question, my last one. So you were the youngest angler to ever fish the Elite Series. And I believe you only have to be 16 to join Bass. And you talked about how you talk with the high school kids and all that stuff. And you've got 30, 40, 50 years left in your career here. Do you think we will ever see a 16-year-old that qualifies for the Elite Series, 16, a 17-year-old fishing at the top level of this game? Because, I mean, you did it at, 18? You're about to turn between 18 and 19?
Yeah, I did it at, it'll be hard. It just depends because if you're going to do it that early, you're going to have to figure out how to get around high school. Quick story, I actually graduated high school early, a semester early. I had all the credits I needed, and I graduated high school in December and started the Opens that January. So I guess if a high school student started the Opens as a boater, maybe when they were and got the excuses to be able to go out and fish as they were in school, maybe they could pull it off. I'm not saying it'll never happen. I'm sure it will. But it's going to be difficult to do it any earlier than that because to me it was just like a blessing. One of those things like I can't believe that happened type of deal. And I would love to have the opportunity to do that again. But I was really young, and it cost me a lot of money. You were talking about how my career's progressed a little bit. It almost might have been better for me to wait, just maturity-wise, because it cost me a lot of money to get a good education on how to catch bass against these guys. I wouldn't change it for the world because it's worked out, but I think you'll see it eventually because high school fishing's taking off, college fishing's taking off. The information, when you talk to these guys, the guys and girls now, they know so much more at the age of 16 and 17 than what I did and what Van Dam did and what Marvin Mendez did and these type of guys. So the possibility is definitely there. I just don't know if it can work out logistically, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right, this is kind of there is no wrong or right answer on this one, Bradley, but when you do talk to these high school kids, what recommendation do you give to them? to, forget about going to college and really try and pursue if you want to be a professional angler? Or do you try and give them guidance on, hey, go ahead, go to college for 4 or 5 years. The Elite Series or the FLW Tour is always going to be there. What's the advice that you give them?
No, you always need to get as much education as you can. Every situation is different for every person. So my situation may not be right for the next one, but they need to get as much education as you can, because the majority of the people aren't going to be professional fishermen, and it's not maybe because they don't have the skill or the assets or whatever to do it. Some people don't end up with the opportunity that I was blessed with. So get as much education as you can, and then if the opportunity presents itself, heck yeah, take it, do it. Fish the Elite Series. Love to have you out here, but go get your schooling done first, and take every opportunity you get there first. And especially with the way college is taking off. I mean, it was different. College fishing hadn't taken off when I was, I'm not that old, but in this short period of time, college has definitely taken off a little more. So there's going to be some opportunities come out of that. I don't know how that's going to progress, but that's going to change fishing and how we get our fishermen, from these lower ranks too eventually. So. All
right. One more question and then we'll let you go. You're one of the few guys on tour that actually has a representation from the business side of it. How has that worked out? And do you think that has really given you an advantage? And do you like the business perspective of this game?
I do like the business perspective of this game. That was one of the things I had to learn the most coming into it. I mentioned I roomed with Mark Menendez, and Mark is really good on the business side of the fishing thing, and I learned a lot from him. And then, of course, J.D. Blackburn, which you're talking about. He just getting help. Fishing is it takes all my attention just to try to figure out how to catch fish. So if I've got somebody that can help me with, maybe a social media post or getting stuff out there, or if a sponsor needs this and needs pictures, like the day after Kentucky Lake, I was wanting to go home. Well, I couldn't go home. We needed to stop and take pictures. We cleaned the boat up. We had to take pictures of stuff because some sponsors needed different things. So I enjoy that side of it, but it's definitely nice to have somebody that can help you through that, because it takes my mind off of that and allows me to focus more on fishing. So I definitely think it's a help, and it's something that any professional angler should look at for sure.
All right, cool. How do you feel about Travis?
I'm excited. Travis is pretty much new to the majority of the field. So I like, with our new rules that we have, since the schedule released, we're not allowed to get any information. I like going to new places that we have that rule with, because I definitely think it opens the doors for a lot of cool stuff.
All right, Matthew, anything else?
No, that covered it. Like I said, in the upcoming weeks before Travis, I did a cool kind of little one-on-one with him after Kentucky Lake, where Bradley really goes in and kind of breaks down his on-the-water mentality that he's kind of developed over the course of his career. So be looking for that probably next week sometime on Bass Zone.
All right, man. Very cool stuff. Great job so far this year, Bradley, and best of luck to you the remainder of the season.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, man. Tell JD we said hello, too.
I will.
All right, man. Take care. See ya. All right, there you have it. Bradley Roy.
Surprised he didn't have some sort of large deer in the background. He's
mean?
got the whitetail haven stuff and all that, and then on his rapid stuff, I figured he'd have a...
Yeah. I just...
What are they called? Boone and Crockett's or Poped Youngs? Or what?
I have no idea, dude. No idea. No idea whatsoever. Couldn't tell you. All right. What else? I think I hit everything on the list, man.
Yeah, no, we're good.
It's getting hot.
Mm-hmm.
It is getting hot. I mean, it's like summertime already here in Oklahoma. It's going to be in the 90s today. And we are 3 events into the Elite Series. FLW only has 2 remaining, correct?
Correct, plus the Cup.
Coming up in August. Is that correct?
Ouachita.
In Arkansas.
Yeah, John Sukup from Oklahoma Bass Nation made that Forest Wood Cup through the Costa Series.
Yeah.
He'll be fishing that derby.
Hey, Frank in Michigan wants to know. He says, Matt, do you know what percentage of anglers on the Elites actually were in college? Just wondering.
Were in college or fished college?
No, we're in college. Went to college.
Nope. No clue.
If you had to guess, what percentage?
60?
Let's just say 100.
Out of 100?
Yeah.
60 to 70 of them? A lot of these guys
I'd say 50.
A high
I'd say about
percentage.
half of them.
A high percentage because
More
a lot
than
of
half?
them. Yeah, I mean, well, think about it. I mean, unless you're a small business owner, it's hard to get to the Elite Series unless you're. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, it's easier to get there after you've had that college degree and you can make the money and then afford to go blow it on the Opens for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, there's tons of guys who take it without college, buddy, but I'm just saying, tend to make
I
more
think that
with
percentage
the college.
has increased over
I agree.
time because obviously 25 years ago it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like to know that too.
It would
I'm
be interesting
curious.
less too, because then if you're a small business owner, you're a plumber like Brad Hallman or Marty Robinson, you can kind of set your own schedule, or you're in a construction business or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
that
know.
would be very interesting.
Maybe you can work on that. All right, so we will return on Friday, same time, 9 a.m. We're going to have Mark Menendez on, and then I'm working on a special guest for Friday also. Just a quick kind of, hey, how you doing? Take a couple questions and then get out of here.
And also just based on the instant feedback, I mean, there's no, like, if an angler misses the cut or like doesn't catch anything, he doesn't have to show up to the weigh-in. It's not like he was supposed to show up and ditched on something that he wasn't. He didn't catch any.
Yeah.
He went home.
And here's the other thing, too. I mean, I'm not sticking up or slamming or anything on anybody about anything on this subject matter. Is you have no idea, and the general population and the fans and everybody has no idea what the situation was.
Right. And I mean, I don't know for certain, but I heard some guy say he had some issues, that mechanical issues that he had to get worked on with the stuff that he
could have
needed
had family issues. He could have had,
or maybe he just didn't catch any, and he had to appointment the day after on Sunday or Tuesday. He had to do something. And
just
left
my
home.
opinion. I just think that if it wasn't something that was necessary to his profession
He should have
or
been
his
there
family
as back
or
to
whatever,
back.
he would have been there. Is what I'm saying.
Well, if he'd caught a fish, he would have been there. But yeah,
Obviously.
I see what you're saying.
Do you see what I'm saying? If there wasn't something that I mean, I'm not saying you go through and you check the box off. Oh yeah, this, and this. Okay, no, I don't have to be there. I'm not saying that.
It depends on what
We just
standard
don't
you
know.
want to hold him to. If he wants to say I zeroed, but I think there might be people there that want to see me.
Did he put anything out
expecting me.
on social media?
I don't know. I can go check it. Then
I mean, it
yes,
sounds like
but
a lot of people follow
I'm just
him.
saying if it's a tough tournament and on Saturday 10 guys 0, unless those guys want to pick their check up because they finish in the top 50, those 10 guys ain't going to be at the weigh-in. They put the boat on the trailer and they go home because they only in the classic
But
do
some
you
of
walk
the people
across
did
with
make
0.
a good point on the instant feedback.
It's Jordan Lee's back-to-back. He should be held to a higher standard.
And he brought their kids, man. Brought their kids to meet Jordan Lee.
Yeah,
and
but
he
what are
wasn't
the
there.
odds? How many days does Jordan Lee go out
That's
and
what
not
I'm
catch
saying.
one?
There has to be something that probably occurred, but at the same time,
It's just bad
especially
luck.
in this day and age of social media, hey, let your fans know.
Yeah, and maybe he did, but I didn't see it.
Do you not follow him?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't look. I should have looked.
I thought you followed him.
I didn't look.
How many people do you follow?
Do I personally follow? 268.
All fishing related?
Most of them, yes.
Most of them?
I just got a follow from Kent Brown.
Really?
Yeah, he is now on Instagram. How about that?
How about that? Good for Kent. Maybe we can get him on next week.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. JD just texted me.
What's that?
Dave and I think because Bradley Roy's super, like, professional, he needs to get edgy, like, super, like, edgy to kind of get, like, the Ike fan base coming in. And we suggested perhaps a neck or face tattoo.
No. Bad suggestion.
Bad suggestion?
Not good. No, not good.
All right.
I mean, he's
killing
styling
it.
and profiling. He is doing his thing and very, very professional. And it's nice to see how much the kid has grown up in 8 years. By the way, he is part of the rare group. You know what the rare group is? When you fish in your very first bass event, not a Elite Series event, but your very first, certified bass event, that you get a check.
Yeah.
And he did that.
Here's what he said. Jordan Lee posted this 3 days ago. Wishing I had 5 like this one today, but after facing some adversity on the water today, we're thankful to have made the top 50 cut this week at Kentucky. On to the next one.
All right. I'm sure people try and communicate. I don't know how it works. If you want to communicate with him on social media, maybe, just say, hey, dude, came to meet you, weren't there. Sorry we missed you. I don't know. How does that work?
I don't know. Pred's going to win Game 7?
Yes.
You think so?
You
think it's going to be...
Dude, I'm on the Vegas
It's going to be Nash-Vegas then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nashville and Vegas to go to the finals?
Yeah, two of the best uniforms in hockey.
That finals would have been a lot better if it was Vegas and Nashville in the finals.
Yeah.
But it's Nashville, Vegas, Washington, and who else?
Columbus?
No. They got smoked early. I don't know.
Boston?
No, they lost.
Oh. Yeah. I agree with some of the people that hey, man, obviously something happened. Let him do his thing and go from there. So
yeah, and like I said, Jordan's a cool dude, man.
Good dude.
He sticks around and talks to
constantly.
When he's there, I've never seen him not. And, he's there. He grew up in it. He came up through the
once
college
again,
stuff.
there is obviously an explanation for what went down. So it's an unfortunate situation for some people. Sometimes that just happens. All right, Matthew, Friday. Anything else, man?
No.
Glad to be back
home.
home.
Try to get Mark on?
No, Mark is on.
Oh, he is on?
Yeah, he's
okay.
on. Booked.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back home. So I got to go get the leaking tire fixed. There's somehow a staple got in the tire of the Bass Cat. A staple of all things.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That had to hit perfectly to go through and not fold over. So I got to go get that. I'm going to fish the Wednesday nighter. Then we're doing the show, and I'm going to go practice on Keystone this weekend.
All right, sounds good. Next week, you are off to Travis, correct?
Correct.
And then
Austin.
We're halfway through the season.
I hear there's cool things to do in Austin. I've driven through there twice.
You're staying in a very cool area.
Am I really?
Austin too.
Chic, hip.
Very, very college-esque.
I hope they don't. I hope there's a noise ordinance. I don't want those crazy college kids.
It's Tampa Bay, man.
Keeping me up.
A lot of Lightning fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's Tampa Bay. All right. So back on Friday. Everybody be safe. Enjoy the nice weather. Get out. Try and catch a fish between now and Friday. And we will talk to you soon. Everybody be safe.